A very good evening to you. Welcome to the Weekend Live. We have quite a lot lined up for you tonight. But first, let's take a look at stories hitting the headlines tonight. Six KQ flights between Nairobi, Mombasa, Lusaka and Entebbe resume amid a strike by KQ pilots. A passenger plane crashes into Lake Victoria, leaving 19 people dead. President William Ruto attends COP27 summit in Egypt as world races against climate cloak. And Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua tells Raila Odinga to stay in his right position. Hello, I am Imbida Masi. Welcome to the broadcast. Kenya Airways has announced a total of 6 flights will take off, with the earliest one set for 12:45 p.m. and the latest scheduled for 8 p.m. on Sunday. This unfolds hot on the heels of a strike by Kenya Airways pilots, which has affected over 10,000 passengers who are due for travel on Saturday.
Kenya Airways has resumed flights for specific routes on Sunday as the pilot strike continues into the second day. Passengers heading to the East African region and some parts of Southern Africa have begun traveling. Through a statement to passengers who had booked flight for Sunday, KQ resumed flight for 6 November from Nairobi to Entebbe, Uganda, and back to Nairobi. Local travel from Nairobi to Mombasa and back, and Nairobi to Lusaka, Zambia, and back to Nairobi. The communication from KQ, however, clarified that the flights would only cater for passengers who had already booked for travel. Meanwhile, passengers who had opted not to travel due to impasse were advised to cancel their tickets, with the carrier assuring that a solution at the earliest opportunity be provided. Kenya Airline Pilots Association (KALPA) downed their tools on Saturday, protesting that what they termed as neglect of their grievances, an event which affected over 10,000 customers. While labeling the planned industrial action as illegal, Kenya Airways CEO Alan Kilavuka extended an olive branch to the pilots, noting that KQ's top brass is willing to hash out a deal with them to put an end to the looming strike. According to Kilavuka, should the strike go on as planned, KQ will lose 2.1 billion Kenyan shillings. According to Kilavuka, should the strike go on as planned, KQ will lose Kenyan shillings 2.1 billion a week, and this will negate the stride the airline has made to improve its financial position following the COVID-19 pandemic. Shadrack Simiyu, KUTV.
Now, Wiper Democratic Movement leader Kalonzo Musyoka has cautioned Kenya Kwanza government against letting Kenya Airways go down after the strike of the pilots, adding that there must always be room for negotiation on such matters that have greater consequences on the country and the pride of the nation. The Wiper leader says they are ready to offer assistance in such weighty matters that touch on the heart of the nationhood, saying Kenya Airways must remain the national courier.
It would be a terrible mistake if the current government was to allow Kenya Airways to go down the drain. And if it was possible to have repeated, you can't play with Kenya Airways. Hiyo ndio sura ya Kenya, the pride of Africa. Therefore, please, my suggestion ni kuleta all the pilots And I'm not aware of any pilot ambaye ni mwanasiasa. So kusema watu wako na economic sabotage, I disagree. And I think that Minister Murkomen is trying his best. That's why I say they need us. We'll help them.
At least 19 people have died after a Tanzanian passenger plane plunged into Lake Victoria as it attempted to land in the lakeside town of Bukoba. The rescue operations are on, and at least 26 out of 43 passengers have been rescued and sent to hospital. Rescue operation exercise is on after a Tanzanian passenger plane plunged into Lake Victoria as it attempted to land in the lakeside town of Bukoba. The plane was heading to Bukoba via Mwanza from Dar es Salaam. Tanzania Prime Minister Kassim Majaliwa has confirmed at least 19 people have died. The plane was carrying 43 passengers on board, of whom at least 26 have been rescued and rushed to hospital. According to the regional commissioner Albert Chalamila, the plane was carrying on board 39 passengers, 2 pilots and 2 cabin crew. The plane encountered problems, and due to bad weather, it plunged into the lake. News reports showed photos of the plane mostly submerged in the lake, with only its green and brown colored tail visible above the waterline. Rescue workers, local fishermen and rescue boats were deployed as emergency workers continued to rescue other passengers trapped in the plane. Tanzanian President Samia Suluhu has urged citizens to be calm as the rescue operations continue. President William Ruto has today headed to Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, to attend the United Nations UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC. Ruto will lead the Kenyan delegation to the 27th edition of the Conference of the Parties, COP27. The head of state will champion stronger global solidarity towards effective climate action and highlight policies and strategies on the global carbon market. He will be attending the summit as the chair of the Committee of African Heads of State and Government on Climate Change.
The Convention on Climate Change attendance by President William Ruto comes at a time of interlocking crises, including energy and food insecurity, and in the midst of the worst drought in 40 years affecting Kenya and the Horn of Africa. State House spokesperson Hussein Mohamed confirmed that the president will deliver Kenya's and Africa's statement on climate change and rally the globe towards more ambitious climate action, adding that climate change mitigation and adaptation is at the front and center of President Ruto's development agenda. Ruto is expected to make a strong case for Kenya and Africa, with African nations still bearing the brunt of the impacts of emissions from the developed world. The president will be seeking implementation and honoring of commitments made over the past 30 years by the countries with the greatest responsibilities for accumulating greenhouse gases causing global warming. In Africa alone, extreme weather events have killed at least 4,000 people and displaced 19 million so far in 2022, according to a study by the Carbon Brief News Service. The ongoing drought in East Africa is impacting the livelihoods of more than 9 million people, while 1.4 million people have been displaced in recent weeks in the worst floods on record in Nigeria. Over 200 nations will converge for the summit that runs through until November 18th, 2022. Jacqueline Wanjiru, KUTV.
Kenyan officials say a record drought has killed millions of livestock, left locals facing hunger, and pushed thousands into dropping out of school. A development which experts say will negatively affect the East African nation's education sector. VOA's Ahmed Hussein with the updates.
Kenya's National Drought Management Authority says nearly 4.5 million Kenyans need aid as a fifth failed rainy season in a row marks the worst drought in the Horn of Africa in nearly half a century. In the village of Kule in northeast Kenya's Wajir County, 11-year-old Nadir Mohammed and 2 of his 7 siblings were pulled out of school in August to take care of the family's livestock. Their mother Hindia Abdi says they were forced to move to greener pastures or else the animals will have died and they will have starved.
I would have liked the children to remain in school, but we needed their help to survive.
In the village of Karu, 17-year-old Sadiq Dakane arrives at one of the few working boreholes in the area. He trekked for 2 hours under the scorching sun to fetch the much-needed water.
I left school when the drought struck. My father moved with his cattle to Somalia, leaving my mother and me behind.
The UN Children's Fund, in an October report, says more than 400,000 Kenyan students are affected by the drought and estimates 66,000 have already dropped out of school nationwide. But the situation for children's education could be much worse. Sources tell VOA official estimates not yet released show in just 3 counties in northeastern Kenya, 100,000 children have dropped out of school. Local activists say this will have a negative impact in the future.
If this trend continues, the rate at which pupils are dropping out of schools, then we risk witnessing the largest dropout rate of people from schools. The entire lives of an entire generation is at risk. And you know what that will mean? Producing a generation that does not have quality education. And then there will be a burden. You know, drug abuse, insecurity, terror networks, radicalization, and the whole nation is at risk.
To lessen the impact of the drought, government and aid groups have been sinking more boreholes and bringing emergency food to herders and their livestock. But local authorities say the need is too great, and the efforts over the years to increase school attendance among nomadic herder communities are taking a big hit.
The gains that have been made in the past are being reversed by the current severe La Nina-induced drought.
Officials and activists worry if rain does not come soon, more herder families will take their children out of school, and it could take months or even years to get them back in the classroom. Ahmed Hussein for VOA News, Wajir, Kenya.
Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua on Sunday morning attended a church service at the AIPCA Kennel Church, Murang'a County, where on October 4th, 2020, police violently attacked worshippers with tear gas in a bid to stop President William Ruto, then Deputy President, and other politicians from addressing the congregation. Jeff Mwangi now narrates.
Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, accompanied by a host of political leaders, joined worshippers for the morning service at the AIPCA Church, Keno in Murang'a County. The Deputy President apologized to the Christians for the despicable act on October 4th, 2020, where police threw tear gas in a bid to stop William Ruto to address the congregation. In addition, Rigathi Gachagua, who refused to frame Water CS, Alice Wahome and Kiharu MP, Ndindi Nyoro as culprits behind the police, throwing tear gas canisters to the congregation.
Now when we had a problem here, maofisa wakalazimishwa kutupiga na tear gas. Wakaambiwa kuna vijana wawili waliuawa. Wakaambiwa washitaki Alice Wahome na Ndindi Nyoro na mada waende remand wakae huko. A very independent officer in DCI alifanya uchunguzi, akakataa. Akasema ile ushahidi niko nayo, Ndindi Nyoro and Alice Wahome have nothing to do with it. Mwenye kufanya hiyo ni fulani.
Consequently, the second in command urged police officers to emulate the DCI Officers Act, terming the officer as independent and professional.
That is the way we want our officers to work, professionally and independently.
On the other hand, Gachagua lauded Azimio party leader Raila Odinga for accepting that he was in the opposition after welcoming former defense CS Eugene Wamalwa to the opposition, said that he was on the right track.
Nimeona huyu kiongozi wa upinzani akisema amemkaribisha minister wa zamani anaitwa Eugene Wamalwa kwa upinzani. Now he is correct. He is right. He has accepted He is in the opposition, and he is inviting Wamalwa to join him in the opposition. Now he is reading things correctly. We also invite him and urge him to take his rightful place in the opposition.
However, the second in command blamed Raila for watching silently as former President Uhuru Kenyatta's government engaged in corruption, state capture, and extrajudicial killings. This marks the second time Kenya Kwanza's government is attending Murang'a County for a church service since taking over. Jeff Mwangi, KUTV.
Chief Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi has called for the end of blame games between the Kenya Kwanza government and the opposition. Speaking on Saturday in Machakos during the relief food exercise, Musalia said that elected leaders should refrain from blame games and focus on service delivery to Kenyans. He further added that Kenyans had elected people whom they felt will deliver services to them, and the currency of blame games will not help the citizens. Mudavadi added that Kenya has problems that needed to be solved urgently, and blame games will hinder that. On the other hand, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has been accusing and blaming opposition leader Raila Odinga of watching on silently as former President Uhuru Kenyatta's regime engaged in corruption. Oh, my director tells me it's time to take a short break right here at the Weekend Live. We'll be back with more stories, including stories on agribusiness. Keep sending in your feedback on our social media handles at KUTV_Kenya, at Mercy Imbinda, using the hashtag Weekend Live. We'll be back with more updates. Keep watching.
Taking medicine.
Are you okay?
Yes, I am. The tablet is for HIV prevention.
Pre-exposure prophylaxis, PrEP, refers to antiretroviral drugs taken daily by HIV-negative people who are at ongoing risk of HIV infection to reduce their chances of becoming infected. If used consistently, PrEP can reduce the risk of HIV infection by over 90%. However, because it does not protect against unplanned pregnancy, it should always be used with a family planning method. To get PrEP and any other HIV prevention method, visit a healthcare provider. To talk to someone on PrEP, uliza NASCOP at 0800 724 848 or use direct line 0726 460 000 or 1190. This message is brought to you by the National Syndemic Disease Control Council.
Vera Beauty and Fashion College is focused on being the leading technical and vocational training institute in the region. Our team possesses in-depth knowledge and extensive experience in the industry, offering thorough training in cosmetology, hairdressing, interior design, creative arts, training of trainers, nail technology, and fashion design, with branches in Nairobi, Thika, Meru, Eldoret, and now in Mombasa. Our courses ensure that learners are completely equipped with knowledge, competency, and employability skills. Enroll today to be a part of a center of excellence.
If you go back to the law of contract, there is a requirement for a contract, because we have said it's a property law, but it has an element of contract in it, in that the landlord and tenants agree. In the law of contract, for you to be able to enforce a contract, it is provided that it must be evidenced in writing, especially if it is relating to land.
Thank you for keeping it KUTV Weekend Live. Welcome back. Agrivoltaic farming is the practice of growing crops underneath solar panels. Scientific studies show some crops thrive when grown in this way. Doubling up on land use in this way could help feed the world's growing population while also providing sustainable energy. Pilot programs are underway in Kajiado County.
Under Kenya's scorching sun and clear skies, about 60 kilometers south of Nairobi, Ann Watkins, a local farmer in Kajiado County, is learning a new technology called agrivoltaic.
If the white flies are also mingi sana.
The technique involves using solar panels to shade crops, harvest rainwater, and generate clean energy.
This is a new technology which saves on so much. And with the climate change, and especially with the solar production, I think with the solar it's free. We have to maximize to save again on climate change, and basically to save on costs, especially in those arid and semi-arid areas.
The agrivoltaic system has been used successfully in Western countries like the United States and Germany. But this is the first such project in Africa. Year-long research with scientists from the University of Sheffield in the United Kingdom, World Agroforestry and Kajiado-based Latia Agropreneurship Institute has yielded positive results for the project dubbed Harvesting the Sun Twice.
We had two plots. We have the control plot that is grown under the normal conditions. And what we were able to know is that after the analysis, we were able to get that the crops that were grown under the panels performed better. That is in terms of the quantity and the quality.
According to World Bank data, more than half of Africa's population did not have access to electricity by 2019. Agrivoltaic technology combines land dedicated to solar panels with land dedicated to agriculture to improve food security and grid connectivity.
Over the last 15 years, over the last 20 to 30 years, all the players that have been in the agriculture ecosystem, we have put the foundations for why agribusiness is viable for the continent. Most of the technologies that we are talking about, we know which technologies have a chance of success on the continent. What really now needs to be done is to connect the dots.
After the successful rollout in Kenya, another trial is being set up in the neighboring Tanzania, the aim being to spread the technology across the continent. But farmers like Ann Watkins say they need help.
Being a capital-intensive project, the government maybe can put up policies in place when it comes to funding, maybe providing cheaper loans to farmers, and maybe organizing farmers into cooperatives, which may end up being a community project as a cooperative.
While adaptation of climate-smart technologies like agrivoltaic offers hope to farmers in the face of a changing climate, the challenge remains in the rollout to farmers in rural Africa who need such technologies the most. Juma Majanga for VA News, Kajiado, Kenya.
More frequent and severe droughts in Africa are hampering food production, especially in arid parts of the continent where farmers struggle to eke out a living. A water retention system developed in the United States is helping African farmers fight the trend and improve crop yields in drought-affected areas.
Under the scorching sun in the Ulilinzi village of southeastern Kenya, farmers are engaging in unique land preparations. Exacerbated by drought from climate change, the sandy soils in this area like in most arid and semi-arid areas, has made it nearly impossible to produce abundant crops. However, a new water retention technology developed in the US is giving farmers here new hope. The subsurface technology involves installation of specially designed polyethylene membranes in the ground to prevent the loss of moisture and nutrients from the soil.
We had a lot of government funding into the millions and millions of dollars to put all of this whole system together and then test it in Texas, Arizona, California, and Michigan. And these were all 4 universities that worked with us. So this is not something we put in a little container in the backyard, my backyard, and now we're saying it's the best in the world. It's been tested.
Shem Kuya, a researcher at the Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology, is one of the scientists leading the trials of the technology in Kenya.
We have tested the technology with cowpea. We have also tested the technology with maize, and we realized that farms where we had installed these membranes were more productive.
The technology has so far been tested in Zimbabwe and Kenya and is getting good reviews.
When this technology came, I was trained on how to make my sandy soil farm fertile. I saw the benefits and deployed it in my farm, and I can say that this technology is working very well because now I get a good harvest.
This technology is very good. When it was used on my farm for trials, I harvested a lot of maize. Even now, we have vegetables which you can't find anywhere else around here.
The International Center for Tropical Agriculture is among the organizations spearheading trials of the subsurface water retention technology in the sub-Saharan region and says it can bring about a green revolution in the long run.
In addition to the technologies, farmers, if they continue applying, for instance, manure, retaining their crop residues in the soil, reducing the tillage in the soils, then there is buildup of organic matter. So even in 5 years to come, the yields that we have been witnessing in the plots that have the technology are expected to be much higher.
A key drawback of this new water retention technology is the high cost and labor involved. It costs about $1,250 to $2,000 to buy the specialized membranes to cover 1 acre of land. The challenge now is making this technology available for farmers in remote areas who need it the most. Juma Majanga for VOA News, Kibwezi, Kenya.
Let's get sporty. Kenya's Patrick Kipngeno has clinched his second medal on the last day of the inaugural World Mountain and Trail Running Championship in Chiang Mai, Thailand. He came second, earning a silver in the classic up and down 11.2-kilometer race behind Uganda's Samuel Kibet. Kipngeno claimed victory in the classic uphill 8.5-kilometer race on Friday, becoming the first Kenyan man to win a world mountain running title, with his compatriot Philemon Kiriago taking the runners-up. About 30,000 runners, some wearing face masks, took part in the first Beijing Marathon today since 2019 following scheduled disruption by the coronavirus pandemic. It was the first major sporting event in the Chinese capital since the Winter Olympics early this year. China still continues to adhere to a zero COVID policy with harsh lockdowns, quarantines and testing routines imposed after even the smallest outbreaks. Graham Potter's side Chelsea recorded a third unfruitful match consecutively following a 1-0 defeat against Arsenal at Stamford Bridge in their English Premier League match this afternoon, maintaining their 7th position in the league table at 21 points. Centre-back Gabriel Magalhaes netted the game's lone goal in the 63rd minute, propelling Arsenal to the top of the table and their 11th win this season. Meanwhile, Manchester United have suffered a 3-1 loss against Aston Villa at Villa Park, retaining their 5th position in the table.